6.3, policy 712, procurement, it's first reading. We've heard some comments tonight as well on that, so we can take those into consideration. Yes, ma'am.
Are we on 6.3?
Yes, ma'am.
You taking comments?
Yes, ma'am.
There's lots of pages here. Let me see if I've got this correct, David. For purchases between $5,000 and $25,000, we get 3 written quotes. For purchases over $25,000, we do, bids are sealed and they're publicly open. For construction contracts over $50,000, they're sealed and publicly opened. And for contracts $5,000 to $50,000, there's 3 written quotes. Good so far? Okay, then we get to professional services. And I see that for over $50,000, we can either do a QBS or an RFP. But then unless I've missed it, I don't see any language that talks about professional services that are under $50,000. So my first question is, am I correct that I didn't see any language for under $50,000 with professional services?
You're correct.
And then if I am correct, what's the process that we use? We seem to have a process in place for all of the other categories, but I don't see anything for professional services. So what process do we use for under $50,000?
Well, first I note to the board that this is much more stringent than state law requires, which there's no requirement or threshold for professional services. I believe, I don't want to speak for any legislator, but in my experience, the reason for the exception of professional services is they're often unique and tailored to a very specific niche. So we've allowed ourselves, Michelle and I always counsel everyone to get written quotes under these amounts. We also recognize that there are times that only one firm and sometimes no firms, and we'll have to coax a firm into giving us a proposal to do something that's of a professional in nature. So that's why it's there that way.
So I heard you say that we encourage 3 quotes if in fact it's not specific to one particular individual that provides this.
Yeah.
Would you say that's the norm?
No, we do a little better than most of what I've seen out there. The board has seen over the years that we have gone out to bid on a lot of professional services that have even been below this amount.
So is it a true statement that if we hired or you hired, say, a lobbyist for $45,000, okay, that's under the $50,000 threshold, that contract with that individual would or would not come to the board for approval?
We wouldn't bring it as an award. Now, would the contract come? That would be.
Well, you would be signing a contract with an individual to perform services, so if it was a $45,000 contract, would that contract, under contracts and grants, would that contract come to the board for approval?
Most likely not. No.
Really? I personally think that's not a good thing. Awarding a $45,000 contract. Okay.
Are you done?
I mean, I understand why we have thresholds. That's not my concern. Go ahead.
Okay, so that's at the end.
My thought on this is a construction contract, not construction, excuse me, professional service, $50,000. I mean, that's not, in some cases, that's not a large contract. I mean, is that a reasonable number, or should it even be higher than 50,000? I mean, you said we were pretty tight on this.
No, and almost all cases, Michelle pretty much makes a decision, but sometimes we'll collaborate on this, that it's very clear in a lot of cases that there's competition, and we want to make sure we do that, we get close to advertise it. Threshold to me is hard. It's, maybe with inflation, since this was first written, it's probably gotten a little bit low, but I'm comfortable with where it's at right now.
I mean, I remember we had some water infiltration in Lake Shore a couple of summers ago. And I think that little bit of problem was over 100,000. I mean, it was insurance recoverable, but still, I mean, that kind of means, you know, anything of that size is going to go out to bid. It just seems that that's kind of tight.
Well, I think we have a provision in our policy that, you know, if it's an emergency or something like that, we can go ahead and move it.
Oh, yeah,
But-
that's true.
But is this a true statement? Say we hire and I'll just use an example as a lobbyist. Say we hire a lobbyist in January for $40,000, and it's for January, February, March, okay, contract's over. Then we hire that same lobbyist again in August for another $40,000, for like August, September, or October, whatever. Neither one of those contracts, even though now they're aggregately over 100, getting close to 100,000, they would never come to the board for approval.
Well, I don't know hypothetically.
Well, that's why I'm using that example hypothetically, because that's what policy, that's what the words in the policy are saying.
I mean, particularly something like that, in my experience with boards, they, I'll follow there. But I guess it's, there's a potential for that trustee Oschlager. On the other hand, it's, I've seen it both ways. Even with the last board I worked with, there was a period, a certain composition of the board wanted one lobbyist, and that was the majority will. I also had a different composition of that board, very different. They wanted to interview lobbyists. Now, it RFP'd, it wasn't on lowest price, but you know, that example, that's why it's hard to be on it, because that's very much of a
David, on that question, you have this language in here, it's on at the bottom of page 10, in the paragraph that on that page says 01.3, has this sentence, the board of the trustees shall approve all non-biddable purchases, and this includes in this paragraph supplies, materials, or work. Okay, the board shall approve all non-biddable purchases in excess of $25,000 on an annual basis for a single scope of work. So I'm thinking about what Barbara's talking about. That's something that's over $25,000. That's a single scope of work. I mean, is this kind of language that says that the board has to approve it? Is that going to prevent the kind of string acquisition of work that Barbara's talking about? You know, she's saying it's $45,000 for 3 months, and then they go $45,000 again. Well, this says if it's the same single scope of work, this says that the board has to approve it. So does this have any relevance to what she's talking about?
When we've brought non-bidables that are not professional service related, so that can run the gamut of technology that's unique to a certain area, a piece of equipment, chemistry department, that it can only be sourced because of size, certain things. That's what that section is.
That paragraph's not talking about professional services.
That's right.
Yeah.
For professional services in general, you don't have to go through the same process anyway, right? They're
Under
exempt.
50,000, over 50, what we lay out is that we should do a QBS RFP or a RFQ or RFI.
But under 50,000, you're saying we don't have to do anything.
That's
We don't have to do anything.
That's what you say.
I think it's pretty much been the policy of this board, though, as far as lobbyists are concerned, that we've been
Well, it could be.
Involved.
Yeah, I just
in-
use lobbyist as an example. It could be any kind of professional service, where we hire anybody to do anything like, you know, I think we hired somebody to work with our high schools. You know, so that's a contract that, you know, never came to the board. But there's lots of other professional services that the college hire, then obviously they're under 50,000 and we're not even seeing or hearing about them.
Well, they're in the board bills, aren't they? They'll be in the board
Yeah,
bills.
the book that's like this, you want me to go on to that tangent?
Okay, so what's the will of the board?
Well, this is first reading, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it deserves looking at.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, deserves looking at, first reading, I understand that. Others?
I have a question as far as the amount of these contracts. What are we looking at? Like, are we talking about for professional services, are we talking like 10 a year? Or are we talking about, I mean, for the category that Barb is referring to, are we talking about 10 a year? Or are we talking about 100 that that you and Michelle would have a full discretion to approve? I mean, well, how many are we talking about?
You know, like,
Generally, I
off
mean-
the top of my head, and I don't even want to venture a
Yeah.
guess, but we can certainly look into that and get you an answer.
And a dollar amount. As long as you look at the numbers, you know, how many are we awarding? How many did we award this last year, and what was the total dollar amount of those awards? Help put it in perspective.
Yeah, I'm in the camp, just, Chairman, I'm in the camp that we should give them the professional discretion. You know, a lot of these are unique contracts, and I don't have, I mean, you know, really. So it depends on how many numbers. If we're talking about a lot, then maybe there should be some kind of policy. But if we're talking about a reasonable number, then certainly.
Okay, we'll get the different data.
Yeah,
on
let's
that.
get the information out, like, as soon as we can. We'll look at that. You know, I don't want this to come back to the board agenda and we haven't got that information out.
No, we're good at that.
So we know. Okay, good. Okay, thanks for your comments.